Shen Weilan liked my elder sister, but in the year he fell into destitution, I forced him to become my male concubine, subjecting him to endless humiliation. Years later, he raised an army in rebellion. On the day his iron cavalry breached the capital, my father ingratiatingly presented my elder sister before him. Shen Weilan, however, smiled faintly and brought me up. "What's the matter, Xue Tongmian? Are you too afraid to come out and see me?" Everyone says that the first thing Shen Weilan did after seizing power was to put a bounty of 1,000 taels of gold on my life. But he didn't know I had already died long ago. On the day the Shen family's iron cavalry breached the capital, my father, in a desperate bid to save his own life, pushed my elder sister forward. He smiled with flattering obsequiousness. "General Shen, no, Your Majesty, you have always favored Qingni. Now, for the sake of Qingni and the throne, could you spare my life?" Xue Qingni quietly lowered her head, revealing the stretch of snow-white neck, so delicate it stirred pity in one's heart. Shen Weilan did not respond, the sharp blade still dripping with blood, but I knew he would surely agree. He had always liked my elder sister. In the vast capital city, he treated everyone with this same aloof and indifferent manner, only showing special regard for my elder sister. It was true in the past, and it remains true now. Shen Weilan smiled, his expression appearing nonchalant. "Where is Xue Tongmian? What, is she too afraid to come out and see me?" I was slightly taken aback. I never expected him to ask about me. The entire capital knows that the one he loves is my royal sister. He has given all his tenderness to Xue Qingni. Two hearts in love, a match made in heaven. They should have been a beautiful tale. Yet in the year of his downfall, I forced him to become my kept man. I have ruined everything. Now that he has seized power, with a beauty by his side, why would he care whether I live or die? Shen Weilan's eyes held a hint of a smile as he continued. "Back when the Shen family was wrongfully accused and our home was confiscated, the 9th princess forced me to become her kept man, being made to kneel in the snow as punishment, frequent beatings and scoldings. None of these were anything new," he said with a half-smile. "Your Majesty, tell me, shouldn't the 9th princess also kneel in the snow for a few nights now, to taste the feeling of being frozen numb?" I instinctively curled my fingers, a sour ache in my heart leaving me at a loss for words. So Shen Weilan asked about me just to get back at me. Upon hearing this, my father, the emperor, actually breathed a sigh of relief. He avoided my gaze, stammering a bit. "So it turns out the general's hatred is directed at Xiao Ju." But she, before the words could fully leave her mouth, Xue Qingni snatched the sword from the guard. The blade pierced through her father's body, splattering blood across the floor, her hands trembling. She dropped the blood-stained sword. She watched as her father's eyes widened in fury, blood spurting from his mouth before he collapsed to the ground. Finally, she slowly knelt down before Shen Weilan, sobbing. She shakily raised her head and quickly clung to the hem of Shen Weilan's robe. "Father is obsessed with alchemy, disregarding the will of the people, and has long lost their hearts. Qingni is willing to uphold justice even at the cost of family ties. I only ask to stay by the general's side, serving as an ordinary maid, taking care of his daily needs. As for my sister," her eyes flickered, biting her lower lip as she concealed the truth. She had already fled with her consort before the general entered Shangjing. The air grew still for a few moments. Shen Weilan smiled faintly. Finally reaching out to help Xue Qingni to her feet, he tried to force a smile, but in the end, he couldn't manage to laugh. His expression was blank, his face cold. "Is that so? In that case, pass down the order. Whoever finds the 9th princess will be promoted in rank and rewarded with 1,000 taels of gold." What does he intend to do by capturing me? Revenge, venting anger. But I died long ago too. Suddenly, I remembered that year when the Shen family was wrongfully imprisoned, the men sentenced to beheading, and the women exiled. I pleaded with everyone in the court, but everyone avoided the Shen family. Even Xue Qingni, upon hearing it, just looked at me with indifference and smiled. Now that the Shen family has been abandoned, what is there left for this princess to save? I quietly clenched my palm, saying nothing. When the Shen family was in power, she flaunted Shen Weilan's affection for her, and everyone in the capital knew of their mutual devotion, with only a marriage certificate missing. Yet overnight, they became the abandoned ones. How ironic. Later, I knelt in front of the palace all night, Begging my father to grant Shen Weilan to me, I pretended to be willful. Speaking in a spoiled tone, Shen Weilan has always disliked me. He threw away my sachet and mocked my handwriting, making me lose face in front of all the women in the capital. I snorted coldly. Now that the Shen family has committed treason by colluding with the enemy, their crimes are unforgivable. Making him my consort would only further humiliate the Shen family's reputation, wouldn't it? Moreover, if you spare his life, father, it will only demonstrate your benevolence and kindness in the eyes of the world. I pouted my lips and cooed to my father. Since childhood, I have had no mother, and only you, father, to rely on. Please, father, grant me this wish. But in truth, I am not my father's most beloved daughter. Before my father ascended the throne, my mother was his most favored concubine. Emperors are inherently suspicious and cannot tolerate the dominance of maternal relatives because he feared the military power in my grandfather's hands. My mother treaded on thin ice in the harem. A framed poisoning case reduced her to a deposed concubine, completely stripping her of all favor and glory, and as the daughter of a deposed consort, I have been treated coldly since childhood, never receiving any favor. The Shen family has been loyal and heroic for generations. Perhaps my father was worried that confiscating their property would shake the people's hearts, or perhaps he recalled the slight affection he once had for my mother when he was still a prince. He agreed when I brought Shen Weilan out of the imperial prison. He was suffering from a high fever, and after enduring various forms of torture, there wasn't a single patch of intact skin left on his body. Mrs. Shen, tears streaming down her face, knelt in the prison cell and kowtowed to me, sobbing uncontrollably as she thanked me for saving him. I merely gave a cold laugh and mocked, "Save him? He should thank himself for being born with such a fine appearance, which now qualifies him to serve as this princess's consort." Only then did they realize in what capacity Shen Weilan would be leaving the imperial prison. General Shen glared at me, his eyes fierce as if he wanted to devour my flesh and blood. He shouted angrily, "Shen Weilan, if you still have the backbone of a son of the Shen family, face your fate with dignity, rather than living a shameful existence as someone else's plaything." At that time, I didn't understand what was so wrong with clinging to life. Some people have already exhausted all their strength just to survive. The first thing I did after bringing Shen Weilan back to the princess's residence was to make him kneel in the snow during the harsh winter, wearing only a thin layer of clothing. I threw the brush and ink in front of him, looking down at him from above. Master Shen was once the most pitilessly talented young master in the capital, renowned throughout the city for his exceptional calligraphy. Even my father, the emperor, praised his strokes for their strength and spirited elegance. Shen Weilan once made me a laughingstock in public that year. On my father's birthday, I had just been brought out of the cold palace. Xue Qingni suggested a competition in the 4 arts of the study, but during the calligraphy contest, she pushed me forward. At that time, everyone was curious about me, the princess who had grown up in the cold palace since childhood. Someone took the opportunity to ask Shen Weilan how my handwriting was. Shen Weilan raised her eyes slightly and spoke coldly. "The calligraphy is clumsy and unrefined, hardly fit for elegant company." During that time, the noble ladies of prominent families all regarded me as a laughingstock. Now, I put on an arrogant and resentful demeanor, forcing Shen Weilan to kneel in the snow and write characters that would satisfy me. Later, he knelt in the snow all night, and no matter what he wrote, I found fault with it and looked down on it. It wasn't until he fell unconscious from a high fever that the servants in the mansion sent him to the side room. I deliberately made things difficult for him and humiliated him. It was only because, from the moment I took him out of prison, my father's spies were all around me. Only by humiliating him in every possible way could I make my father believe that I truly held a grudge from the past, dispel his suspicions, and truly spare his life. I dared not call for a physician, nor could I show my concern for Shen Weilan, so I used my own cold as an excuse to have a trusted maid secretly fetch medicine and feed it to him. Under my relentless humiliation, Shen Weilan submitted and became my kept man. Does he hate me? I don't know, but most likely, he does. 3. My soul is trapped by Shen Weilan's side. Everyone thought that after overthrowing the previous dynasty, Shen Weilan would proclaim himself emperor, but he didn't. Instead, He installed the young son of Prince Yongjia, Xue Jing, as emperor. When the chubby little child saw Shen Weilan returning to the palace, his eyes lit up. "Brother Shen, have you seen my ninth sister?" That was the last remaining bloodline of the Prince of Yongjia. That year, when the Prince of Yongjia was executed alongside the Shen family for conspiring in rebellion, the princess hid Xue Jing among a pile of corpses, taking advantage of the chaos to slip through unnoticed. A child of 7 or 8 was forced to conceal his identity and survive in obscurity, living a life of great hardship, until 3 years ago, when I first arrived at my fiefdom in Liangju. I picked up this child who somewhat resembled me in appearance. At that time, he was so thin that his bones were visible, covered in filth, lying in the muddy rainwater, struggling to breathe like a dying kitten. Shen Weilan fell silent for a moment, her voice cold and clear. "No." As soon as the words were spoken, before he could continue, Xue Qingni walked in unhurriedly. Now that the throne still belongs to the Xue family, Xue Qingni's position as princess remained secure. As the eldest princess, she maintained the dignified air of an elder sister, and gently inquired, "Your Majesty, why are you looking for that disgraced official? She has long since left the capital and fled with her consort. If there is an important matter, Your Majesty may certainly confide in your elder sister." The moment he saw Xue Qingni, the little dumpling immediately became unhappy. He furrowed his brows and retorted angrily, "You're lying. We deliberately took a detour through Liangju on our way here, and ninth sister wasn't there at all. If she's not in Shangjing now, where else could she be?" As if to completely sever ties with Xue Qingni, Xue Jing immediately followed up, "Also, my ninth sister is no criminal official, and you are not my imperial sister. So don't try to get close to me." In that instant, Xue Qingni's eyes instantly reddened. The delicate beauty, with tears welling up in her lovely eyes, evoked an involuntary sense of pity. She looked toward Shen Weilan, appearing utterly aggrieved. "Could it be that even the general does not believe what I say?" Shen Weilan did not respond. After a long while, he finally spoke softly, "The ninth princess has indeed fled. Your Majesty has just ascended the throne, and there are many trivial matters to attend to. In the coming days, Your Majesty should stay peacefully in the palace. Tomorrow, I will have Grand Tutor Meng enter the palace to teach Your Majesty the rights and laws." Shen Weilan's words had already confirmed that I was a disgraced official, and he continued, "Indeed, the Grand Princess is His Majesty's elder sister. As the model for the entire realm, His Majesty should follow the rights and address the Grand Princess as elder sister." Xue Jing's eyes widened instantly. As if he had heard something unbelievable, he unconsciously took a few steps back, gritting his teeth tightly. His eyes filled with tears as he glared fiercely at the person before him. "I trusted you so much. If it weren't for finding ninth sister, who would want to come to the capital to be this lousy emperor?" Xue Jing thought that by following Shen Weilan to the capital, he would be able to find me. He regarded Shen Weilan as an elder brother, and he still believed that Shen Weilan would silently stand by his side no matter what happened, just like before. But he happened to meet Xue Qingni. That is Shen Weilan's favorite woman. No one can let her suffer any grievances in front of Shen Weilan. When it comes to Xue Qingni, he has always been indulgent, for Xue Jing was furious and ran out in a huff, with eunuchs and palace maids chasing after him in a chaotic uproar. All the attendants in the hall withdrew, and Xue Qingni walked to Shen Weilan's side, speaking gently and affectionately, "His Majesty is young and not particularly close to me. I hope the general will take good care of him in the future." Shen Weilan fell silent for a moment, then simply asked, "Where exactly is Xue Tangmian?" This time, I was genuinely somewhat surprised. I never imagined Shen Weilan would hate me to such an extent. He didn't even cherish the hard-won opportunity to be alone with Xue Qingni, and instead asked about my whereabouts again. Xue Qingni was also stunned for a moment. When she regained her composure, the smile on her lips couldn't help but appear somewhat forced. "Didn't the general ask about this earlier? Her Highness has already fled with her consort." But at this moment, she clearly understood that Shen Weilan did not believe this perfunctory excuse at all. Xue Qingni lowered her eyes and spoke softly, "However, I do indeed know where the princess has gone." She lifted her clear, bright eyes and bit her lip. "Father has passed away, and the new emperor treats me with indifference. I have no one else to rely on. I can tell you the whereabouts of the princess, But I have one condition. She clung to Shen Weilan's lapel, her fingers slender and soft. I want you to marry me. Under the candlelight, Shen Weilan's expression grew increasingly cold. After a moment, he said, "All right." A hint of joy flickered in her eyes, and Xue Qingni subtly curved her lips. I sighed. Why go to such great lengths even if I weren't the condition? As long as it was Xue Qingni's request, Shen Weilan would agree to it all, but seeing the two of them so deeply affectionate, I turned my eyes away as if to hide how strange. I covered my chest, lowering my gaze slightly. I clearly have already died, leaving only a wisp of a lingering soul drifting through the world. But why does my heart still ache so much? 5. Just as Xue Qingni wanted to take things further, Shen Weilan was called away by his deputy general. She stamped her foot in a mix of embarrassment and annoyance. Yet even so, the joy in her eyes was impossible to hide. I paused for a moment where I stood, then had no choice but to follow Shen Weilan as he drifted out once more. Ever since I regained a sliver of consciousness that day, I have been unable to stray more than 3 zhong away from him. I don't understand why, but it feels like a confinement imposed upon me. Shen Weilan dismissed his deputy general and left the palace alone, but he didn't return to the Shen family, nor did he go to the newly built general's mansion. Instead, he came to my princess's residence. The plaque was covered in cobwebs, and the princess's residence had long been empty. He walked into the estate, surrounded by overgrown weeds, and following his memories from the past, he finally arrived at my bedroom. He stood at the door for a long time, then finally clenched his fist, lowered his eyes, and pushed the door open. I followed Shen Weilan inside. My bedroom remains exactly as it was before. Even though I've been away for so many years, it hasn't changed in the slightest. I had thought Shen Weilan came to the princess's mansion late at night to vent his anger, or perhaps because he suspected I might naively be hiding right under his nose. But he didn't smash or destroy anything. Instead, he very carefully wiped away the dust from the desk. In truth, I never treated Shen Weilan well in the past. The vast princess manor was likely his worst nightmare at that time. My notorious reputation was known throughout the capital. The 9th princess, with the worst temper in the city, had taken a male consort even before marriage, and Shen Weilan became the laughingstock among the scholars of the capital. Those who once flattered and fawned over the pitilessly handsome young master of the Shen family now mocked and looked down upon this unworthy consort. The words male concubine would be etched in his memory forever, becoming a lifelong disgrace. I thought Shen Weilan would never want to return to this place again. After all, the princess's residence was like a nightmare to him. He meticulously cleaned my room, and when he accidentally bumped into the desk, a scroll rolled off the edge. Shen Weilan picked it up, unrolled the scroll, and froze in place. Curious, I leaned in closer, but as soon as I saw the handwriting on it, I couldn't help but take a few steps back, instinctively wanting to flee, though I clearly had no physical form. In that moment, even the tips of my ears seemed to burn with heat. I remembered this piece of calligraphy. Shen Weilan taught me how to write at that time. The relationship between Shen Weilan and me had slightly eased. He requested a private audience and calmly revealed my intentions of repeatedly humiliating him. Shen Weilan has always been clever, and honestly, I never thought I could keep it from him for long. The scars always remained on the surface, and fine medicinal herbs would inexplicably appear in his room. Seeing my flustered denial, he merely curved the corner of his lips and changed the subject. "What is your highness doing?" Before he arrived, I had been practicing calligraphy. Ever since I made a fool of myself at my father's birthday celebration, I had resolved to put in some serious effort in this area, but for some reason, I felt inexplicably guilty and instinctively hid the crookedly written rice paper. Nothing. Shen Weilan, however, smiled gently and looked up as if sensing something. "Your Highness's handwriting doesn't seem to be very good. Since your Highness has nothing to do at the moment, why don't I teach you how to practice calligraphy? Consider it a bribe to your Highness, so that you'll treat me better in the future." I slightly opened my eyes, and it wasn't until his hand covered the back of mine that I snapped back to reality. His hand, wrapped around mine, was scorching hot. Watching the characters fall one by one onto the rice paper, I lightly pursed my lips and spoke with feigned ease. "I heard everything that day. You said my handwriting was ugly and that it was unfit for refined settings. I became the laughingstock of the capital for quite some time back then. Otherwise, I wouldn't be practicing my handwriting so diligently now. Shun Weilan's hand paused for a moment, but he quickly returned to normal. He smiled gently. I never knew Your Highness could hold such a grudge. Then Your Highness must not have heard the second half of my words at that time. He simply stopped writing, looked into my eyes, and repeated the words from that year with utmost seriousness. At that time, I said, Your Highness, your handwriting is clumsy and may not be fit for elegant occasions. The second half of the sentence that Your Highness did not hear is, but the strokes are bold and well balanced, making it a piece of uncut jade nonetheless. I looked into his eyes without uttering a word. Actually, I had heard it back then. At first, when I heard the first half of the sentence in public, my immediate reaction was a burning sense of shame, the kind of shame that comes from losing face in front of someone you love, because I had liked Shun Weilan for a long time. Back then, I was still in the cold palace, neglected by the palace servants, in the harsh winter, without any charcoal for warmth. I had to endure my illness and go to the imperial household department to fetch it myself. Feverish and dazed, I lost my way in a state of confusion and eventually collapsed on the palace path. It was Shun Weilan, who had come to the palace to report on his duties, who saved me. From then on, even though I still did not win my father's favor, no palace servant dared to treat me with neglect again, and it was because of the second half of Shun Weilan's words at that time that I made up my mind to practice my handwriting diligently. I looked at Shun Weilan and spoke softly. You know, I grew up in the cold palace, and there were no tutors or teachers to teach me how to read or write. Outside the window, the crabapple blossoms were in full bloom, but Shun Weilan's expression was serious as he asked, Then, Your Highness, do you wish to learn? I fought back the sting in my nose and nodded firmly. From that day on, Shun Weilan taught me to read the 4 books and 5 classics, historical records, and military strategies. He taught me all of them. The entire world knows that the once-renowned young master Shun of Yangbei, after being reduced to a kept man, was humiliated and mistreated by the 9th princess in her decline, but there is a secret known only to the 2 of us in this world. I no longer have to publicly punish him only to be tormented by worry afterward, nor do I have to endure the heartache of fearing he might hate me without knowing the truth, because we are accomplices, bound by a relationship that would require collective punishment should it ever be exposed. Something seems to have changed between Shun Weilan and me, yet it feels as if nothing has at all. But he never knew that the first character he taught me to write that day was framed in a scroll and secretly hidden away by me. That scroll holds the obsession of my entire life. 6. The news of Xue Qingni and Shun Weilan's wedding spread quickly. In just a short month, everything had been arranged. That was the first time I saw Shun Weilan dressed in a bright red wedding gown, as elegant as an orchid and as radiant as a jade tree, just as beautiful as I had imagined. I stood outside the crowd, watching Shun Weilan seated high on his horse, welcoming the wedding sedan. I imagined that at this moment, Shun Weilan must be as full of joy as any ordinary groom on his wedding day. After many years, he finally married the one he loved. After going around in circles, they were still entangled with each other. Actually, I know I shouldn't keep watching any longer. Being trapped by Shun Weilan, witnessing his grand wedding with another woman, was probably a kind of torment for me. But the sedan chair suddenly stopped, and the maid beside Xue Qingni called Shun Weilan over. She lifted the curtain, covering her face with a fan, revealing a blood-stained, fair wrist. Her eyes and brows were slightly red as she softly complained, I just bumped into a hidden compartment and accidentally cut my hand. The wound wasn't actually deep, just a slight scrape that drew a little blood. But in front of the one she loved, softly voicing her grievances, every gesture concealed a woman's silent, lingering affection. I watched the 2 of them, wrapped in their wedding attire, with a smile. Even passers-by who knew nothing of the situation thought they were a perfect match. In such a heaven-made union, my presence should never have been there in the first place. I think I should be sad, but I am already dead. I can only watch helplessly, unable to even shed a tear. Shun Weilan ordered someone to fetch the medicine, and 2 medicinal herbs were brought forward. He spoke softly. I still remember. 5 years ago, during the autumn hunt, someone attempted to assassinate the emperor, and I fell off a cliff because of it. The mountain peaks were treacherous, with jackals and tigers running rampant. At that time, everyone thought he would surely not survive, but I secretly slipped out and searched the mountain forest all night. When I found him, he was covered in blood, unconscious on the ground, with the corpses of wolves scattered everywhere. At that time, he was delirious and on the verge of death from blood loss. I had no medicine on me and was so anxious that tears streamed down my face. In the end, I found a few hemostatic herbs in the mountain forest, crushed them, and applied them to his wounds. My mother grew up on the borderlands and was most skilled in medicine. Unfortunately, she passed away early, and I, having learned only superficially, have not mastered her craft. I was unable to move with Shun-Wei-Lan, yet I feared that after I left, wild beasts might discover his traces. As I went to seek help, my mind was filled with nightmares of him being devoured by wild animals. I could not explain to everyone why I had secretly left the cold palace and ventured into the hunting grounds to search for Shun-Wei-Lan's whereabouts, so I concealed my identity, disguised myself as a palace maid, and passed on the information about Shun-Wei-Lan's location. Now, Shun-Wei-Lan looked at Xue Qingni, his fingertips lightly curling in his sleeves as he smiled faintly. And you found hemostatic herbs for me. This herb reminds me of the past. Xue Qingni's expression stiffened for a moment, her red lips unconsciously pursed as she replied somewhat unnaturally, yes, that day I searched for the general in the mountains and forests all night, and fortunately, I still found him. I was stunned by the words, for on the day I returned to the hunting grounds, Xue Qingni had clearly already gone back to the palace. Under Shun-Wei-Lan's gaze, she picked up one of the herbs and clumsily crushed it, applying it to the wound, but she had chosen the wrong one. It was just an ordinary weed that looked similar. She knew nothing of medicine and had no relevant experience, so it was normal for her to make a mistake. But I don't understand, how could even Shun-Wei-Lan mistake such a simple herb? Shun-Wei-Lan's expression remained as calm as ever. I only vaguely remember that the person who saved me was a woman. Later, you found me and claimed that it was actually you who saved me that day. You said that the son of Prime Minister Li was cruel and had taken a liking to you, and that the late emperor intended to arrange a marriage between the two of you. You begged me to save you for the sake of our past relationship, so I protected you in every way, making sure no one would dare bully you again. He paused for a moment, glanced at the crushed grass, and smiled softly. But I've wanted to ask you for a long time, was it really you who saved me that day? He stopped smiling and said, expressionlessly, you don't recall the details, nor can you identify herbs, so how did you manage to find the exact herb to stop my bleeding that day? My nose tingled with a hint of sourness. It was only at that moment that I realized perhaps Shun-Wei-Lan held no affection for Xue Qingni. He was merely protecting her out of gratitude for her past life-saving favor, but the one who saved him was not Xue Qingni. She had taken my name. Xue Qingni was somewhat flustered. At this moment, she also realized that the herbs placed before her were problematic. But she quickly steadied herself. I am not skilled in medicine. After finding the general that day, I stayed by his side without leaving for a moment. It was my maid who found the herbs. She hurriedly changed the subject, putting on a pitiful and sorrowful expression. Does the general suspect me like this because he doesn't trust me, or is it because he doesn't want to marry me and is using these excuses to delay? Shun-Wei-Lan did not answer, as his deputy, who had been away for a long time, hurried over. He leaned close to Shun-Wei-Lan's ear and whispered something indistinctly. Shun-Wei-Lan's eyelashes trembled slightly before he calmly lowered his gaze. He smiled faintly, reassuring Xue Qingni, who was still unsettled and uncertain. Your Highness, you worry too much. It's just that today, Your Highness has witnessed bloodshed, and I fear it may bring ill fortune. Coinciding with the urgent military situation at the border, the wedding ceremony will likely have to be postponed for a few days. Your Highness is understanding and will surely sympathize with my difficulties. Xue Qingni forced a smile. The fact that Shun-Wei-Lan no longer doubted who had saved him that day was already a relief to her. She concealed the cold sweat on her back. Even though she had to watch the wedding being postponed, she had no choice but to feign magnanimity and understanding. Naturally, Shun-Wei-Lan hastily withdrew his hand and left, heading in the direction of the imperial prison. I knew who he was going to see. I heard every word the deputy general said to him. The 9th princess is still missing, but the consort has been captured in Yongju. I noticed the panic in Shen Weilan's hurried steps and couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. So, she found the consort. But this is probably the reason Shen Weilan hates me the most. I pulled the corner of my mouth into an ugly smile. 7. I followed behind Shen Weilan, feeling somewhat dazed the entire way. I remembered the year I went to Liangzhu not long after I saved Shen Weilan. The Western Rong sensed an opportunity and launched an invasion. At that time, the Shen family had already perished, and throughout the land, only my maternal grandfather held military power. In the vast empire, there were no more brave generals left to be used. To reassure my grandfather and allow him to focus on repelling the enemy, my father, the emperor, granted me the fiefdom of Liangzhu. At that time, my relationship with Shen Weilan was also quite delicate because he seemed to have noticed that I liked him. The year we went to Liangzhu, Shen Weilan went with me. That period of time was probably the sweetest days of my life. He would drape a coat over me late at night, make crabapple cakes for me, and take care of me without even undressing when I was sick. Sometimes I would think, if I weren't a princess and he weren't a general, how wonderful it would be if we could just be an ordinary, commonplace couple in the world. In my first year in Liangzhu, I forged a heavy sword for Shen Weilan. He was once the spirited young general of the Shen family, riding with a silver saddle, daring to venture deep into enemy territory all by himself. Unfortunately, he is now forced to stay by my side, unable to even wield a sword anymore. Half a year later, I received a secret letter from my grandfather. He said the emperor had already become aware of the relationship between Shen Weilan and me, and the Son of Heaven, burdened with excessive worry, might resort to silencing us. The pain of family confiscation, the agony of extermination. Even though the Western Rong War is now critical and there are no capable officials in the court, the emperor still fears that Shen Weilan might harbor resentment and is determined to eliminate him completely. The time I could buy for Shen Weilan was only this much. Not long after, my father's secret edict indeed arrived, a decree betrothing me to the son of Prime Minister Li, while simultaneously summoning both Shen Weilan and me to the capital. That day was the Flower Festival, the grandest festival for blessings. Liangzhu borders the vast desert, yet the city itself is bustling with life. My mind was elsewhere as I strolled with him through the lively streets. A passing vendor enthusiastically handed us a colorful paper lantern. It is common for people to write their wishes on these lanterns and hang them on tree branches, praying for blessings from the flower deity. Seeing me hesitate to pick up the brush, Shen Weilan asked uncertainly, "What's wrong?" I only shook my head. "The wish I want to make, the flower god cannot fulfill for me." Shen Weilan, however, curved his eyes, his jade crown and white robes seeming to carry a hint of a smile. He spoke with dignified grace, "Your Highness, just make the wish, whether it's reaching the heavens or delving into the earth. Even if the flower god cannot fulfill it, I will always find a way to make it come true for your Highness." His eyes held a gentle smile. I gazed into them but found myself unable to utter a single word. I tightened my grip on the colorful cup and spoke softly. "I sought out the finest craftsman to forge a long sword for you, intending to give it to you on your birthday. Now, I may not live to see that day." Shen Weilan remained silent for a long time, his voice hoarse as he was about to speak, only to be scattered by the crowd of people who had come to pray for blessings. I lost my footing and was pushed back a few steps by the surging crowd. Just as I was about to fall, someone went against the flow of people and took hold of my hand. The most intimate distance between me and Shen Weilan. It was during that flower festival. When the crowd separated me from him, he tightly held my hand. Amid the bustling crowd, as thousands of lanterns rose, he suddenly lifted my veil and leaned in toward me. It was a fleeting kiss. The evening breeze tousled my hair, tangling our locks together. His lips were crimson, and his breathing had grown unsteady. He lowered his voice, yet his eyes shone with a brilliance that was startling, more dazzling than 1,000 lights. He said, "Shui Tongmian, I was once a general. I have never feared death. I fear possessing martial skills yet seeing the people displaced and homeless. I fear living in this world yet being unable to protect those I love. I carry too many heavy shackles on my shoulders. I once thought that by surviving in this world, I could one day clear the Shen family's name. But then I met you." I gazed into his eyes, slightly lost in thought. I understood the meaning behind his words. I said nothing, just with moist eyes, nearly unsteadily digging my nails into my own palm. I could barely hold back the sob in my throat. Why did you choose to love me just when I had to let you go?" After returning to the mansion that day, I handed the long sword over to him with a calm expression. I told him that I wanted to eat the begonia cakes. He made himself the next morning. Shun Weilan was taken aback for a moment, then softly agreed, but I knew in my heart there would be no tomorrow for us anymore. 8. On the way back to the capital, I deliberately took a detour to Yongju. That was the fiefdom of Prince Yong, where his daughter, Princess Minghua, had always been arrogant and domineering, and had long admired Shun Weilan. When I first forced Shun Weilan to become my male consort, she was so furious she almost rushed to the capital to beat me up. The convoy was stopped in Yongju, and Princess Minghua smiled. As she mocked and ridiculed me, I merely smiled faintly, not bothered in the slightest. Changing the subject, I spoke wearily. "I heard that Princess Minghua has always liked Consort Shun, to the point where it caused discord between us sisters. Coincidentally, I've grown somewhat tired of him lately. Why not gift Consort Shun to the princess? Whether to keep or dismiss them is entirely at the discretion of the princess." Shun Weilan froze, clenching his teeth tightly, looking up at me in disbelief. He struggled to steady his emotions, forcing out a few words through gritted teeth. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" I rarely see him angry, his suppressed rage staining his brows and eyes with a fierce crimson. Meng Shanggong, standing beside me, frowned upon hearing this. She was sent by my father's decree, a spy to keep watch over me. Meng Shanggong's face turned ashen as she reminded me, "Princess, His Majesty's decree is for Consort Shun to enter the palace together." With a smile in my eyes, I casually remarked, "He's just a lowly male concubine, hardly worth your attention, father. Or perhaps, is it that Lady Meng now rules the empire, and even I, a princess, must obey your commands?" I walked out of the palace with my attendants, the carriage already prepared, and all the belongings left for Shun Weilan were thrown out. The carriage had only moved a few steps when it suddenly came to a halt. I lifted the curtain to see Shun Weilan standing in front of the carriage, the corners of his eyes slightly red. He looked up at me without blinking. "You know very well how I feel about you." His voice abruptly ceased. He suddenly closed his eyes, casting aside all his pride and shattering his arrogance. When he spoke again, his voice was low, hoarse, and strained. "Please, don't leave me. I only have you." I lifted my eyelids with a hint of annoyance, cutting him off. "Father has arranged a marriage for me. I am returning to the capital to get married. Don't you understand? I don't want you anymore." I repeated each word slowly and deliberately. I said, "I don't want you anymore." Shun Weilan stood in place, his dark, silent eyes fixed intently on me, flickering with a terrifying pain. That winter was truly cold. So cold that my fingertips trembled and my voice grew hoarse. He stood in silence for a long time, so long that the falling snow shook from his long lashes. In the end, he uttered a self-mocking whine, staggered back a few steps as if unsteady, and picked up the sword I had given him, severing ties and cutting off affection, breaking the sword to make a vow. His lips tightened slowly as he indifferently threw the broken sword before me without looking back. He turned and walked away. Thanks to the princess for her past protection. From now on, Shun and the princess, never to have anything to do with each other again. I left Yongju by carriage, with Lady Meng, the palace matron, restrained by my attendants, unable to send any messages to outsiders. As I watched the city grow increasingly distant, the pain in my heart was beyond words. This was the only solution I could think of. I sent a message to Princess Minghua, begging for her help. "After I leave, Princess Minghua will send Shun Weilan to Yangbei, where the remaining forces of the Shun family are still stationed." Shun Weilan is right. He has never feared death. Even if he were to die, it should be honorably on the battlefield rather than dying under the Emperor's suspicion. Yet my tears continue to flow uncontrollably. This is exactly what I wanted, yet I don't understand why my heart aches with such unbearable pain. To cover for Shun Weilan, I deliberately prolonged my journey back to the capital. On the day I returned to Shangjing, news of Shun Weilan's defection arrived at the same time. I heard that later he wounded the palace guards and escaped. Not long after, Shun Weilan gathered his former troops in Yangbei and rose in rebellion, and I was imprisoned in the palace. At that time, My father was obsessed with alchemy, pursuing the art of immortality, while the court was controlled by Prime Minister Li, the suspicious emperor, filled with doubts, executed loyal ministers, only to end up paving the way for others. With the Western Rome War imminent and the Shen family rising in rebellion, amid internal and external troubles, Prime Minister Li imprisoned me in the palace, using me as a hostage, and spread the news of my marriage to his son. Shen Weilan did not rush to capture the capital. Instead, he spent 2 years driving back the Western Rome forces, Yongju, Zhuzhou. Every city and prefecture where the Shen family army passed through opened its gates wide, welcoming the troops into the city. The common people understood clearly who it was that protected their peace and well-being in the midst of a chaotic world. The great edifice crumbled. This was the will of the people. 9. The door to the dungeon was pushed open. Li Wenjin looked up, a cold sneer on his face. Victors are kings, losers are bandits. I accept dying at your hands. In truth, I had only met Li Wenjin a few times. He possesses an extraordinary appearance and usually presents a gentle and refined demeanor, but his actions are ruthless, and he particularly delights in tormenting others. He seems to harbor a deep-seated animosity towards Shen Weilan, as has always been the case. When I forced Shen Weilan to become my male companion, he publicly mocked Shen Weilan for willingly submitting to a woman, claiming it was a disgrace to manhood. Shen Weilan got straight to the point and asked, "Where is Xue Tongmian?" Li Wenjin was taken aback for a moment, then suddenly realized, "So it's the 9th princess you're looking for." "What, General Shen? Are you missing the days when you served as a male concubine and attended to others?" he said with great enthusiasm. "General Shen once served as the princess's consort, while I am the princess's husband. According to the etiquette of Southern Liang, should the general now greet me as a concubine would a principal wife, offering tea and paying respects." However, none of this could provoke Shen Weilan. Seeing him remain silent, Li Wenjin seemed to realize something, his expression turning into a half-smile. "You couldn't possibly have developed genuine feelings for her, could you?" Shen Weilan's eyelashes trembled slightly. He raised his wrist, the tip of his sword pointing directly at Li Wenjin. "Stop the nonsense." Li Wenjin, however, showed no fear. He stepped forward to meet the sword and boldly declared, "General Shen, there's no need for such anger. The 9th princess also has feelings for you. What a devoted woman she is, going to great lengths to rescue you from the pile of corpses in the Shen family, yet not daring to let anyone know of her affection for you. Sometimes even I think you should truly be grateful to her. That secret edict summoning you to the capital was meant to be your death warrant. Yet who would have thought she would let you escape in Yongju?" Shen Weilan's sword was almost slipping from his grasp, his voice hoarse as he repeated, "Where is she, exactly?" Li Wenjin's eyes gleamed intensely, yet his tone carried an unmistakable mischief, his voice light and airy. "You couldn't possibly not know, could you, Princess 9th, Xue Tongmian, the one who saved you multiple times, who liked you but never dared to let you know even a little. She's long been dead." Shen Weilan's lips trembled, but no sound came out. After a long while, he spoke expressionlessly. "You're lying to me." Li Wenjin, however, felt utterly exhilarated. Shen Weilan's suffering was exactly what he most wanted to see. His voice grew hurried, and he lifted his eyes excitedly. "Stop deceiving yourself. The Shen family army has scoured southern Liang, and even I have been captured by you. Shangjing, Yuju, Liangju, where could a woman possibly run to?" He burst into laughter, gripping the edge of the sword, his eyes fixed intently on Shen Weilan as he spoke rapidly. "A year ago, the Western Rome nearly broke through Shangjing. To resolve the threat from the Western Rome, someone in the court proposed a marriage alliance. I originally intended to keep Xue Tongmian in Shangjing to restrict your movements, but who would have thought that Xue Qingni, who was supposed to be the one to marry, would end up in my bed?" Xue Tongmian was imprisoned in the palace for a year, yet in the end, she willingly agreed to take her place in the marriage alliance without a word of complaint. Do you know why? Because at that time, rumors spread in Shangjing that you had fallen into a trap set by the Western Rome and were on the brink of death. But the reality is not quite so. Although I agreed to the marriage alliance at that time, I never intended to go through with it obediently. Relying on the sacrifice of women cannot bring about peace. I had it all planned out. Once outside the city gates, I abandoned the carriage and set off on foot. I was heading to Liangju, to Yangbei, to that vast expanse of yellow sand. I was going to find the troops my grandfather had left behind. Shen Weilan had taught me military strategy, but even if I couldn't command troops or fight on the battlefield, I could at least distribute porridge and food in the city to stabilize the people's morale. By that time, perhaps I would see Shen Weilan again, perhaps he will stand by my side on the battlefield, but even if he is still angry and refuses to see me, it doesn't matter. One day, peace will finally come, and when that time arrives, I will explain everything to him, little by little, slowly. But for now, I hope Shen Weilan never learns of these things again. I am already dead, so it doesn't matter if Shen Weilan hates or resents me, now that the world is at peace. Why should I cause him unnecessary pain? I wish I could rush over and cover Li Wenjin's mouth, but there is nothing I can do. Shen Weilan's voice was hoarse. Is she in Shirong? Li Wenjin laughed, then abruptly changed the subject. Rumors are swirling in the capital that today is General Shen's wedding day with Xue Qingni, but you surely don't know that this was actually the idea of your harmonious and loving wife. On the day the 9th princess was married off, Xue Qingni came to me. She said that Xue Tangmian is wholly devoted to planning for you, and even after marrying into the Western Rong, she might still incite them to join forces with you to seize the throne of Southern Liang. The 9th princess thought she could escape the capital, eagerly boarding the marriage carriage with hope in her heart. Yet a mere cup of poisoned wine, how easy it was. As for the body, there are so many refugees outside the city, those who starved to death, those who died of illness. Who could possibly know which one it truly was? Shen Weilan walked out of the prison. The blood-stained sword fell onto the pure white snow. As the wind and snow grew fiercer, the snow in the capital this year had arrived so early. His face turned cold as he walked briskly, and in the end, he stumbled into a run. The biting wind whipped against his face, causing his robes and black hair to flutter wildly. The crabapple blossoms laden with snow were weighed down by the wind and snow, brushing lightly past his shoulder. Yet he remained completely unaware. I couldn't help but recall that year, the first time I ever laid eyes on him. The Empress hosted a banquet to celebrate the coming-of-age ceremony for my younger sister, born just a few months after me. The palace maids whispered mockingly, saying all the other princesses had their own mothers, except for me. That year, I too came of age, but no one remembered. I knocked over the water jar, causing the maids who had mocked me to fail their tasks and be scolded by the matron. They had always treated me poorly, pinching and cursing me, venting all their grievances from the palace onto me. That day, I took advantage of the chaos to escape the cold palace. The coming-of-age ceremony was lively and filled with envy. I hid in that crabapple tree. I watched without blinking as the Empress placed the hairpin in my royal sister's hair. The ceremony grand and magnificent. I miss my mother too. The falling snow was cold and slippery, and I accidentally slipped and fell. Closing my eyes as I waited for the pain to come, someone caught me. I had never seen someone so good-looking before, tall and graceful, with clear and bright eyes. My face flushed, and I stammered, too shy to speak. Not far away, Xue Qingni's voice could be heard, curious, charming, and filled with the eager, tentative excitement of a young girl seeing her beloved. Are you the young master of the Yangbei family? Afraid that my secret escape from the cold palace would be discovered, I panicked and turned to flee. Shen Weilan didn't take the matter to heart either, casually brushing off the begonia petals that had fallen onto his shoulder and forgetting about it in an instant. He did not know. Actually, that winter, I was the one who met him first. Shen Weilan arrived at the Qiyun Hall. This place once imprisoned me, and now it is occupied by Xue Qingni. He said nothing, yet he seized Xue Qingni by the neck, his voice low and hoarse. I'll ask one last time, where exactly is Xue Tangmian? Xue Qingni, choked and unable to breathe, her face flushed crimson, desperately pried at Shen Weilan's hand bones. She collapsed to the side, her hair disheveled, curling up in a corner, struggling to force out a few words. Are you insane? Seeing Shen Weilan's icy expression as he approached with his sword, she finally felt fear. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face in terror, and shouted sharply, "She's dead, she's dead, she died long ago." Her eyes glistened with tears as she cried out urgently, "But I didn't do it, really. It wasn't me. I still have her belongings. I'll give them to you." I'll find them all for you. His gaze was icy, like a bottomless, frigid pool, chilling and terrifying. So much so that no one dared to approach. After a long while, he spoke hoarsely, "Imprison her." Before Xue Qingni could even catch her breath, he enunciated each word clearly. "Ling Kai, dismemberment. I will always think of a suitable way for you to die." He walked out of the palace, only to find a raging fire behind him. Perhaps Xue Qingni had knocked over a candle in her panic, or perhaps she felt that dying this way was far more satisfying than being executed. Shen Weilan watched the flames grow with an expressionless face and ordered his attendant, "Don't let her die too easily." The flames licked at the flower branches outside the window, igniting the colorful lanterns hanging from the boughs. Shen Weilan gazed at those colorful lanterns, her eyes flickering slightly as if she had thought of something. Ignoring the scalding flames, he pressed out the fire on the colorful lantern with his bare hands. After seeing the handwriting on it, his fingertips trembled, and his breath caught. For a moment, he suddenly looked toward the burning palace, finally realizing that traces of my presence had once been everywhere here. The 5-colored lanterns carrying wishes, the crabapple trees laden with snow, the yellowed papers on the windowsill and desk, and the all-too-familiar handwriting. The year in Liangju was as beautiful as a mirage, a dream that felt like yesterday, yet so fleeting that one wished never to wake from it. When the colorful lanterns were lit, I finally saw the words inside clearly. "Snow in Jiangnan, I will not betray you until my hair turns white." I felt a bit dazed. I finally understood why I was still lingering in this world, because I still have an obsession. The wish I made back then was to go with Shen Weilan to see the snow in Jiangnan. I have a promise that I can no longer keep. With the note burned and the promise gone, it is time for me to vanish from this world. I saw Shen Weilan rush into the fire, the crimson flames nearly swallowing him whole. He was held back by the palace attendants, forced to watch helplessly as the fire devoured everything, his face pale with terror and his eyes wide with despair. Everything was burned to ashes, leaving only the charred, blackened hilt of a broken sword. He collapsed to the ground, clutching the hilt of the sword as if it were a drowning man's last lifeline, sobbing uncontrollably. In the moment before my consciousness faded, I suddenly remembered the year the crabapple blossoms were in full bloom. When Shen Weilan taught me how to write, he patiently and gently placed his hand over the back of mine. At that moment, no one knew my heart was racing like a drum. The verses I wrote down at that time thus became the obsession of my life. Mountains bar the way, clouds in chaotic layers. Snow falls north and south of the river. However, the winter in Shangjing is nothing but cold. Shen Weilan, you haven't taken me to see the snow in Jiangnan yet. Extra. Shen Weilan has walked this world for 33 years. The first 23 were for himself, and the last 10 for Xue Tongmian. He was once the pitilessly handsome young master of the Shun family in the capital, the undefeated young general of Yangbei. In a single day, his family was destroyed, and he was reduced to being the princess's kept man. He harbored hatred for the emperor, hatred for the royal family. He was willing to endure humiliation and live on, if only to avenge his parents. At first, his treatment of Xue Tongmian was not entirely sincere. It wasn't until later that he tore through the veil of truth and saw clearly that in this world, even a single person could barely protect themselves, yet they still struggled for him. Other women feared he wouldn't know their feelings for him, but she alone offered her sincere heart, not daring to let him know even half of it. During that year in Liangju, he went out to make purchases and happened to meet a child selling flowers in the market. The child asked him, "Sir, what is your favorite flower?" He paused for a moment, but instinctively said, "The crabapple is quite nice." His heart began to pound wildly. He frowned slightly, wanting to press down on his uncontrollable heart, but it was no use. After a long while, accompanied by his quickening heartbeat, he seemed to hear someone sighing within his heart. "Admit it, you like her." He always finds himself unable to control his gaze, which inevitably falls upon her, only when he snaps back to reality. Does he realize that a smile has long since unconsciously graced his lips? After it happened too many times, even she began to notice. On the day of the flower festival, he could no longer hold back and finally confessed his feelings. That day she handed him the long sword, yet earnestly gazed into his eyes. She made him swear an oath, forbidding him from taking his own life. No matter what happened, He must live well, he carried too much on his shoulders. Even when his parents were beheaded, he never once thought of suicide, for he had never lived only for himself, so at that time, he did not understand why, only feeling that the vengeance for his father and brother's massacre remained unfulfilled, and the world was still in turmoil. How could he possibly have the right to take his own life? It wasn't until later, when he learned of her death and saw the broken sword that had been through fire, that he wept uncontrollably and finally understood the meaning behind her words. Back then, she resolutely let him go, heading alone to the capital to face the overwhelming imperial power. He avenged the massacre of his family and helped the son of Prince Yongjia ascend to the throne. For the first 23 years, it was for the Shen family, for revenge. Unfortunately, the following 10 years were like living as a walking corpse. He remembered the vow he had made. He wanted to die, but with the Western Rome watching covetously, the court full of unpredictable schemes, and the new emperor still young, he could not take his own life. He feared she would be angry with him in the afterlife. In the end, he returned to Yangbei armed with a single blade, clad in black armor, and riding a fierce steed. He guarded Yangbei, leaving no opening for any foreign enemy to exploit. The moment he closed his eyes, he seemed to hear the wails of many people. There was Xue Jing, there were the soldiers, and there were also the ordinary people who had survived thanks to his kindness. He realized he had reached the end of his life. But until that very moment, what he thought was perfect, he could finally see her. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. When the 9th imperial uncle conquered the southern border, he was tricked by a sorceress while saving his beloved, and was implanted with an amnesia-inducing GU. On the night he returned to the court, I threw myself into his arms and deceived him into believing that I was his 9th imperial consort. For the next 8 years, he cherished me as if I were his life, but during my difficult childbirth and massive hemorrhage, the GU worm inside him suddenly vanished. He drew his sword and rushed into the delivery room, forbidding the imperial physician from treating me. As he watched my unborn child die inside me, he coldly uttered a single sentence, "Wanwan, this is the price for deceiving me." He said that if I hadn't taken advantage of his amnesia to trick him, his beloved Ling Chuchu wouldn't have been forced into prostitution and died tragically in the brothel. I pleaded desperately, only to hear that he had rebelled against the throne and slaughtered the entire royal family. My father, the emperor, my mother, the empress, and my younger brother were neatly hung at the city gate. When I died a tragic death from excessive blood loss on my sickbed, he was instructing his subordinates to add Ling Chuchu's name to the family register. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my 9th imperial uncle triumphantly returned, and this time, I just sweetly called out, "Imperial uncle." The Empress Dowager rushed over and whispered to me, asking why I didn't say what we had agreed upon earlier. The 9th imperial uncle, Pei Ling, is a prince of a different surname. He is brave and skilled in battle, known as the #1 war god of the Yi dynasty. In order to win over Pei Ling, the Empress Dowager wanted me to take advantage of his amnesia and pretend to be the woman he admired. I know you have feelings for Pei Ling. This is your only chance to marry him, otherwise, you'll have no choice but to marry into the bitter cold of the northern region. In my past life, forced by the Empress Dowager, I deceived the 9th imperial uncle and ended up in such a miserable state. The pain of that difficult childbirth still seems to linger within me. Pitiful my unborn child, who died in the womb, while his own father stood by and watched coldly. In her previous life, after Pei Ling regained her memories, she blamed me entirely for Ling Chuchu's death. He beheaded all of my relatives, including my father, the emperor, my mother, the empress, and my young brother. Their bodies were hung at the city gate. Subjected to endless humiliation in this life, I would rather go to the northern region for a political marriage than repeat the same mistakes. What kind of joke is this, Your Majesty? The 9th prince was only schemed against by the GU sorceress because he was trying to save Miss Ling. He was implanted with an amnesia GU. This is a love that moves heaven and earth. I quickly brought up Ling Chuchu's existence and told Pei Ling what had happened before. If it weren't for Ling Chuchu wanting to pick that white lotus on the cliff, how would they have fallen into the GU sorceress's trap? He wouldn't have had his memories devoured by the GU insects either, but as soon as I finished speaking, Pei Ling suddenly grabbed me by the neck. His grip was incredibly strong, and a cold smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Murong-wn, you've been reborn too, haven't you? Why aren't you claiming to be my 9th princess consort this time? I was suddenly startled. Pei Ling had been reborn as well. His eyes were bloodshot, and he used an extremely heavy hand, choking me until I could barely breathe, yet he unnecessarily added an explanation. In my previous life, it wasn't that I didn't want to save you and the child, I was just furious that you deceived me. Pei Ling said I had been following him around since I was little and was well aware of Ling Chuchu's situation. She is the daughter of a disgraced official, struggling to survive in the world of pleasure. Just because I deceived Pei Ling, on our wedding night, Ling Chuchu was so angry that she directly sold her first night. She acted out of spite but never waited for Pei Ling to come and save her. Ling Chuchu injured the guest who had bought her, causing a huge uproar, and in the end, she met a tragic fate. Let's just call it even. Wanwan, what is the imperial uncle worried about? We have no connection whatsoever. Let each go their own way. I wish you and Miss Ling a happy union for 100 years. My repeated calls of imperial uncle pierced Pei Ling's heart like needles. He let go of me and hurriedly left. The Empress Dowager entered the room in a rage, her voice lowered in a sharp rebuke. Useless thing, I gave you a chance but you couldn't make use of it. Since you can't win Pei Ling over, then you shall go for a political marriage. All right, I calmly replied. Are you insane? The northern region is bitterly cold. How can your sickly body endure it? Grandmother, the 9th imperial uncle hasn't lost his memory. He was just testing us earlier. You know how ruthless 9th imperial uncle's methods can be. The moment I looked up, the Empress Dowager's face turned pale. She feared Pei Ling, who now had growing influence and held absolute power over the court. These words completely defeated the Empress Dowager, and I insisted on accepting the decree to marry for political alliance. My mother cried until both her eyes were swollen. I lay on her lap, murmuring softly, I am a princess. This is my duty. Mother knows. But Wanwan, the northern region is a very cold place. Tears welled up in my eyes. But only by doing this could I protect you and father, and ensure my brother survives. I brought the imperial decree back to the princess's residence and gathered all the old belongings related to the 9th imperial uncle. He once saved me when I was chased by a wild wolf in the hunting grounds. He shot the wolf dead with an arrow and personally taught me how to ride a horse and shoot a bow. I kept that arrow from back then. I also kept the first letter, which he wrote to the emperor when he was trapped on the battlefield with no supplies left. In it, he mentioned a few times that he could no longer teach me how to write in person. Tears, cold as ice, streamed down my cheeks. My affection for Pei Ling had always been hidden deep in my heart, and I never dared to hope for anything more in my previous life. I was forced by the Empress Dowager to do such a thing. Pei Ling was right, I deceived him. And I deserved it. As I trembled and tried to burn these things, Pei Ling suddenly rushed in from outside the door. He said with a cold face full of anger, I should have known better than to trust your words. I really thought you had given up on me. Murong-wn, how cruel you are. If you want revenge for the grievances of our past life, come at me directly. Why target Chuchu? Pei Ling raised his sword and lunged at me, causing the object in my hand to fall to the ground. He glanced at it and sneered even more coldly. Didn't we say we'd go our separate ways? Why are you still keeping these things? Pei Ling stepped forward and stomped on them fiercely a few times. Do you know that if I had arrived any later, Chuchu would have lost her innocence? Even though she has fallen into the world of pleasure, she has always remained chaste for me. Pei Ling said that I, in order to get back at her, drugged Ling Chuchu and nearly caused her to lose her innocence. I didn't do it. As the words fell, the long sword pierced my shoulder, and Pei Ling said it was a lesson for me. It's my fault for not teaching you well. I will make sure you learn the rules properly. The pain from this sword strike made tears stream down my face. I couldn't stop trembling all over. My face turned pale as I insisted. I didn't do it, but Pei Ling didn't believe it. He said I was best at lying. If it weren't for my deception in the previous life, Ling Chuchu wouldn't have died. Without the slightest hesitation, he sent someone to throw me into the brothel. Pei Ling said a woman's reputation was the most important. Yet I had attempted to ruin Ling Chuchu's innocence. Don't play her to death, after all, she is still a princess. He threw me into a group of men while I was being defiled by those men. Ling Chuchu came in from outside, barefoot, and threw herself into Pei Ling's arms. Second brother, I'm scared. Ling Chuchu held Pei Ling without any restraint, and the man, who had always kept his distance from women, showed no resistance. She pleaded for me, saying the seventh princess is just a bit willful, not a bad person. Why did you come out? It's cold outside. She's not worth your concern. The more Ling Chuchu spoke like this, the more Pei Ling resented me. He said if I had even 1/10,000th of Ling Chuchu's kindness, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Let's just consider it as accumulating virtue for our wedding. Okay, the woman's voice was soft and delicate, and with Ling Chuchu's coquettish plea, Pei Ling agreed. He affectionately reached out and gently tapped her nose. I had seen such a gentle demeanor in my previous life as well. It was Pei Ling after he lost his memory. He took my hand in his palm and asked, "Darling, why are your hands so cold? Let me warm them for you." My heart sank sharply as Pei Ling said he would let me go this time for Ling Chuchu's sake. If there is a next time, I will make you pay the price. Princess Seven is just a little girl. Being so fierce will scare her. Ling Chuchu covered Pei Ling's mouth, scolding him for treating me that way. The more unrestrained she becomes, the more it makes my past self seem like a joke. Love and the lack of it are truly so obvious. I limped downstairs but was stopped by Ling Chuchu. How could someone as noble as the seventh princess cast aside all sense of propriety and shame? He is your imperial uncle, how dare you covet him? Ling Chuchu's eyes were filled with ruthlessness, and her voice was icy cold. How dare you still pester him? I am about to marry him. If the seventh princess has any self-respect, she should know better and leave. I froze in shock. This was not the Ling Chuchu I had heard of. She was known for her gentleness and understanding, a famous confidant, yet now she was like a venomous snake. I will not pester him, and I wish you both. She went on to ask me herself, do you believe, seventh princess, that in second brother's heart, I am the most important? Do you dare make a bet with me? As Ling Chuchu finished speaking, a venomous snake suddenly shot out from her sleeve and bit my wrist. I had no time to dodge. My body stiffened, and I collapsed heavily, dragging Ling Chuchu down the stairs. With me, I lost all color from my face, while Ling Chuchu's head hit the railing on the side, scraping a bit of skin. When Pei Ling arrived and saw this scene, he panicked on the spot. Murong Wn. Chuchu just pleaded for mercy on your behalf, and you repay kindness with enmity by treating her like this. Pei Ling scooped up the woman from the ground, his voice trembling as he asked Ling Chuchu if she was in pain and if she was okay. The imperial physician said the aphrodisiac in your system has just been neutralized, and your body is too weak. Now you've suffered such a severe injury. Pei Ling said he wouldn't let me off, paralyzed by the snake venom. I couldn't move at all, and in my dying moments, I begged Pei Ling for mercy. I've been poisoned. Pei Ling, please, save me. The words that followed were unclear. Pei Ling frowned and looked at me, as if he had remembered something. He took out the 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill from my embrace. This was given to me by my father when I came of age, the only life-extending medicine left in the world by the ghost-handed miracle doctor. I thought Pei Ling wouldn't just stand by and watch me die. Stop pretending, Murong Wn. You love lying and deceiving people the most, and you act so convincingly. This is a pleasure quarter, not some desolate wilderness. Where would a venomous snake come from? The 9th imperial uncle didn't believe what I said. He fed that 9 Revolutions soul-returning pill to Ling Chuchu in despair. I tried to rush forward and snatch it, but Pei Ling kicked me away. You're the one who caused Chuchu's injury. Consider this as repaying a favor to her. I don't want there to be a next time. After speaking, Pei Ling picked up Ling Chuchu, who was already fine, and left. The woman smugly raised an eyebrow at me. She mouthed the words to me. Go die, Murong Wn. This snake venom has no antidote. The only medicine that could have prolonged your life has already been taken by me. I suddenly spat out several mouthfuls of blood, collapsed to the ground, and my consciousness slowly faded away. Blood was flowing from all my orifices, my life hanging by a thread. As I lay dying, scenes from my past life echoed in my ears. Why, in this life, Did I still fail to avoid it despite my deliberate efforts to steer clear? Pei Ling, Ling Chuchu, I hate you. When I woke again, my mother was weeping by my sickbed. She had sought out the ghost hand divine physician to save my life. It's just that the poison has penetrated my internal organs, and my left hand is already useless. What exactly happened? Wanwan, tell mother, and I will avenge you. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I clutched the hem of my mother's robe, shaking my head in agony. I knew Pei Ling's methods and didn't want my mother, father, or anyone else to risk themselves for me, but as soon as I closed my eyes, the tragic scenes of being brutally murdered by Pei Ling in my past life and tormented by them again in this life flashed through my mind one by one. I wish I could kill them with my own hands. But I too have my weaknesses. In the following days, I was busy with the matter of the marriage alliance. Pei Ling, for once, had someone send me pearls from the South Sea, and he bowed his head to apologize to me. That day's incident, Chuchu explained it to me, that you shielded her from the venomous snake. I should thank you. No need, I spoke coldly, telling Pei Ling to take the things away. You don't need to avoid me like this. Just like before, I will still treat you as family. 9th. Uncle said as long as I don't act recklessly anymore and don't bully Ling Chuchu, he will not take action against the Murong family, and he will also help the Murong family protect this kingdom. My eyes were red and stinging with unshed tears. Family, is it the family who slaughtered my entire clan, watched me bleed profusely, and remained unmoved as my child died in the womb? The envoy from the northern region has already submitted the marriage alliance proposal. I know you fear the cold, so I declined this meeting on your behalf. You will not be chosen for the marriage alliance with the northern region. The 9th Imperial Uncle said this was the only thing he could do for me, as a way of repaying the favor I did by shielding Ling Chuchu from the venomous snake. I couldn't help but laugh. 9th Imperial Uncle placed the invitation in my hand and urged me to attend, saying he would still treat me like family. After he left, I discarded those South Sea pearls and burned the invitation. The day before the marriage alliance, my mother accompanied me to the temple to pray, holding my hand tightly. The journey ahead is long and arduous. Are you sure you don't want to tell your imperial uncle? You've always been so attached to him. I shook my head and carefully put away the protective talisman my mother had given me. As we were descending the mountain, we were suddenly blocked by a group of bandits. Those men were extremely brutal and killed everyone in our party. I shielded my mother firmly behind me. The leader, holding a blood-stained knife, looked at us with a lecherous gaze. The little one is for you to play with, but the one behind has real charm. I insist on having her serve me well. The Emperor's woman, this is the first time I've encountered one, with such delicate skin. She must feel amazing to sleep with. That man rushed over, and I grabbed his broadsword tightly, refusing to let him bully my mother. But with a single lift of his hand, my arm was cut, and blood spurted out instantly. Another one. I gritted my teeth, the pain nearly making me faint, but I still stubbornly shielded my mother. Get out of the way, or I'll kill you. He vented his anger by cutting me 99 times, just as I was losing too much blood and my vision went dark. Pei Ling's voice echoed in my ears. He shouted angrily, "Who gave you the nerve to harm the 7th princess? Ha, what are you, thinking you can save someone all by yourself?" But in the very next moment, Pei Ling took action and repelled the leading few. Just as he was dealing with the bandits, a sharp scream from Ling Chuchu suddenly echoed through the forest. Pei Ling's heart raced as he turned to look at me, clearly hesitating. "Wanwan, wait here for a moment, I'll go check if Chuchu is alright, then come back to rescue you. I beg you, Pei Ling, save my mother." But I couldn't utter a single word, only watching helplessly as Pei Ling resolutely walked away. My mother desperately shielded me with her body. Those people, having been wounded by Pei Ling, took their anger out on us even more. My mother held me tightly, her heart aching, and untied the sash of her garment, revealing a large expanse of snow-white skin. And just in the neighboring woods, Ling Chuchu had only twisted her foot. She said angrily, "I'm not that fragile, you don't need to worry about me. Go quickly and save the virtuous consort and the 7th princess. The consort's clothes were torn to shreds by them. Those beasts vented their anger with vicious cruelty." "Bitch." The man slapped the consort across the face, and blood streamed from the corner of her mouth. When Pei Ling arrived, he was met with this devastating scene. His voice trembled after rescuing us. He kept apologizing to me all the way back. Ling Chuchu's eyes reddened even more. It's all because second brother is too worried about me. He insisted on carrying me down the mountain himself just because I twisted my ankle, but my heart had long grown numb. The next day was the day I set off for the marriage alliance. My mother accompanied me on the journey, afraid that I would worry about her. I felt a pang of guilt in my heart, living a second life, yet still unable to change the course of fate. As the marriage procession left the capital, it happened to pass by Pei Ling's wedding entourage. He seemed to recall something. Go and hurry the seventh princess, she's probably still angry with me, the guard replied in confusion. The seventh princess cannot come, what's going on? Today is the day the seventh prince goes to the northern region for a political marriage. What? Who did you say is going for the political marriage? Pei Ling's face instantly turned pale. He dismounted from his horse, grabbed his subordinate, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Didn't I give orders that the seventh princess must not be on the list for this political marriage? Pei Ling questioned how they could be so incompetent, failing to handle even such a minor matter. He said that was the only thing he could do for me. No wonder she's been distancing herself from me. She must hate me. Pei Ling mounted his horse, turned around, and intended to chase after the marriage procession. But at that moment, Ling Chuchu, dressed in her wedding attire, stood in his way. She said the auspicious time had arrived, and if Pei Ling were to chase after me now, she would become a laughingstock. I am the daughter of a disgraced official, born in a place of ill repute. Marrying me has already tarnished the ninth prince's reputation. If you abandon me now, Ling Chuchu's tears fell from her eyes. Her pitiful appearance would stir compassion in anyone who saw it. Pei Ling hesitated. He also understood the meaning behind Ling Chuchu's words. But the next moment, he still mounted the horse. The marriage procession has just left the city. If I go after them now, I can still make it back in time for the wedding. Pei Ling said today is his most important day, and he wants me to witness it. Pei Ling's heart was in turmoil, unable to explain why. When Ling Chuchu suddenly blocked the path of the horse, she said that if Pei Ling intended to chase after me today, he would have to step over her body. Second brother, you said your heart belonged only to me. So why? The northern frontier is bitterly cold, and Wanwan has been pampered since childhood. She can't endure it. I don't want her to make a decision she'll regret for the rest of her life just because she's angry with me. Pei Ling's expression darkened slightly as he looked at Ling Chuchu in this state. Must you go today? Pei Ling turned to the side and instructed his subordinate, take the lady away. I will return in time for the wedding ceremony. If anyone dares to say a word, cut out their tongue. Yes. Ling Chuchu was forcibly taken away. As she watched Pei Ling's retreating figure, she fell into deep thought. At that moment, she clenched her hands tightly inside the carriage. I held my mother tightly, crying uncontrollably, apologizing to her over and over. It's not your fault, Wanwan. You've protected me well enough. It's me who failed to protect you. No, it's my fault. This ordeal was no accident at all. Those bandits could tell at a glance that my mother was from the palace. Even though we weren't dressed in court attire, it must have been arranged beforehand. There's no need to guess who is behind it. I hold a deep hatred in my heart, and I will not let them get away with this. In this second life, I thought that if I kept my distance from Pei Ling, going our separate ways without any entanglement, I could avoid falling into the same cycle as my previous life. I had clearly hidden far enough away, so why did I still end up like this? I refused to accept this, and just then, the carriage suddenly stopped, and someone said the ninth prince had arrived. I was startled and saw someone lift the carriage curtain. Pei Ling, covered in dust and looking weary, coldly questioned me. Have you had enough of this tantrum? You should know when to throw a fit. Do you even know where the northern domain is? Pei Ling said that the journey ahead is long and arduous. You may never see me again in this lifetime. His eyes were bloodshot, and the tone in which he spoke made it seem as though we were a deeply devoted couple who had loved each other for years. I suddenly laughed. Wouldn't that be exactly what you wish for, Imperial Uncle? Enough, Murong Wn, you don't need to speak like that. I truly let you down. I failed to save you yesterday, and before that, I misunderstood you. Pei Ling said we could go back to how we used to be, and he would protect me. Why won't you believe me? WN, even if it's to make up for the unborn child. If you go to the northern region, what are you saying, Imperial Uncle? I am the princess of the Yi dynasty, and marrying for alliance is my duty. I gritted my teeth and spoke word by word. The protection Pei Ling mentioned was seeing me severely injured, yet without hesitation abandoning me to attend to Ling Chuchu's sprained foot. I couldn't afford to gamble, nor did I want to, but the ninth Imperial Uncle repeatedly assured me that yesterday's situation would be the last time. No matter what your intentions are, I do not agree with this marriage alliance, and you will not go even if you want to. Pei Ling gave the order to turn the marriage procession back, but I showed the imperial decree in my hand. I had requested permission to go for the marriage alliance. Pei Ling's expression changed instantly. He asked me in a trembling voice, "Do you despise me that much? You flatter me, Imperial Uncle." "What Imperial Uncle? Try saying that again." Pei Ling's methods had always been ruthless. If he said the marriage procession was not to leave, no one dared to act recklessly. Tearing up this imperial decree would be a matter of moments for him. If he wished, he could easily have my father change it. However, I had long anticipated all of this. "Let's see who dares to send you off today, noble consort. Please come this way. There are some words I would like to share with Wanwan in private." "I refuse." My mother firmly stood in front of me. Wanwan has suffered severe injuries, 99 bloody wounds on her body. The ghost hand miracle doctor barely managed to save her. "I cannot let you harm her," my mother said. "Even if I don't speak, she knows that the incident with the venomous snake must be related to Pei Ling." She said she would protect me even if it costs her life. I am not like the prince, who claims to protect Wanwan but easily abandons her when she is in a critical condition, bleeding heavily. What happened yesterday was my oversight. The virtuous consort is right. Pei Ling said his trusted aide was right behind us yesterday, but for some reason, he arrived late, causing me and my mother to suffer humiliation. A wave of nausea rose from the depths of my heart. My mother was resolute, and Pei Ling had no choice. Just as he ordered the marriage procession to turn back, a troop of armored cavalry suddenly surrounded the path. The man in the lead, dressed in white, walked up to the carriage and said with a smile, "What, is the ninth prince planning to steal my bride on his wedding day?" The crown prince of the northern domain, Nangong Yi, appeared here because I had written to invite him long ago. Through the curtain, I caught a glimpse of that breathtakingly beautiful face, truly worthy of the praise even the ghost hand divine physician had given it. "This is an ointment abundantly produced in the northern region. Applying it can help wounds heal." Nangong Yi said he would personally apply the ointment for me, but Pei Ling refused to back down. "Men and women should not touch each other inappropriately, and Wanwan isn't married to you. What's the matter, ninth prince? Can't bear to part with her?" Nangong Yi raised an eyebrow and leaned close to his ear. "After all, you raised her with your own hands. Why don't you marry her, ninth prince?" Nangong Yi smiled and asked why the ninth prince, instead of attending his own wedding with his beautiful bride, was here intercepting his future crown princess. He got into the carriage on his own, and when our eyes met, I always felt as if I had seen him somewhere before. Nangong Yi naturally grabbed my hand and said, "The ninth prince is getting married, and my wife and I will naturally go to congratulate him. Please return first." His words made Pei Ling grit his teeth in anger, but it was Pei Ling who clearly detested me and hated me to the core. So what is he doing now? "By the way, on my way here, I took care of the mountain bandits for your Night Dynasty. Wanwan, I've already cut off the heads of those who bullied you." Nangong Yi spoke gently, apologizing for not arriving yesterday, saying that if he had been there, no one could have harmed me under his watch. Pei Ling grew even angrier, and at that moment, Nangong Yi continued, "Those people really couldn't withstand the interrogation. It's clear that someone bribed them for what happened yesterday." Nangong Yi threw the item in his hand over. "If I'm not mistaken, these personal belongings came from the Fengyu Pavilion. The one who bribed the bandits was actually a woman." "What do you mean by that?" Pei Ling lowered her voice. "You don't even realize the person lying next to you is a venomous snake, and the ninth prince is nothing more than this." Tension instantly escalated between the two. A murderous aura erupted. Pei Ling said coldly, "Choo-Choo can't even bear the sound of a chicken being killed. How could she possibly do such a thing?" "I never said it was Miss Choo-Choo," Nangong Yi sneered. "The ninth prince also suspects her in his heart. Doesn't he? Shut up. Pei Ling said no one is allowed to slander Ling Chu. She would never do such a thing. You don't need to stand up for WN by creating something like this to frame Chu. I remained silent on the side, but I also understood what Nan Gongyi was saying. I was troubled by the lack of evidence, but he brought the evidence with him. It's just that Ling Chu holds too much weight in Pei Ling's heart. Even at this point, he still refuses to believe it. The venomous snake that bit Wanwan was bred by the former imperial family. Only those of royal blood could have raised it. Who do you think it could be? Nan Gongyi stopped there, knowing that Pei Ling was no fool, as long as he was willing to investigate. These flawed and inconsistent details would surely be uncovered. As Pei Ling left, Nan Gongyi said softly to his mother, "I'll apply the medicine for Wanwan." Okay. When my mother left, my heart tightened, but I didn't show any fear. She is not someone who easily trusts others. Yet she allowed me to be alone with Nan Gongyi. Do you know my mother? Ghost Hand Miracle Doctor is my master, and our mother can be considered my martial aunt. I furrowed my brow, and the next moment, Gongyi reached out to apply the medicine for me. He said that to make the wound heal quickly, I must apply this. I'll do it myself. What about your back? You're going to marry me. So what are you still afraid of? Gongyi said that patience is the key to revenge. Without a bit of tolerance, how can one seek vengeance? What do you think, Wanwan? My back stiffened abruptly. He was right. I had to endure, and I had to recover quickly. I endured the pain as Nan Gongyi applied the ointment for me. It might hurt a little. Bear with it. Even though his movements were gentle, the wounds still hurt intensely. After applying the ointment, he returned to the capital with us. He grabbed my hand, and in full view of everyone, we went together to the 9th prince's residence. With your husband here, there's no need to be afraid. Wanwan, try to trust me a little. Seeing that I wanted to withdraw my hand, he held it even tighter. By the time we entered, the guests inside had already dispersed. I was somewhat surprised, only then hearing from the servants that the wedding was called off. Pei Ling and Ling Chu had a huge falling out. Did you release a snake to bite her? The 9th imperial uncle asked in a low voice, yet the resentment was still audible. Why, it was the little snake that accidentally bit her. Ling Chu said it was just an accident. She looked at the dead snake and then met Pei Ling's furious eyes. He said he hated being lied to the most, but Ling Chu panicked. I wanted to explain it to you, but you were so worried about me at the time. I sneered coldly. What a perfect time to clarify things. Ling Chu, you set a snake on me, and even though it only grazed my skin, you ended up taking my life-saving elixir. My hand was already useless. This was what she called an accident. I'm sorry, 7th princess, but that day really was an accident. I'll do anything to make it up to you. Ling Chu insisted she had no ill intentions toward me. She anxiously tried to explain, asking Pei Ling if he didn't believe her. Pei Ling took a deep breath. The venomous snake might not have been intentional, but what about those mountain bandits who defiled them yesterday? What do you mean? Do you suspect that I hired the mountain bandits to harm them? Ling Chu took 2 steps back, questioning why Pei Ling didn't even give her that little bit of trust. What a clever move to turn the tables and distort the truth. If it were before, Pei Ling would have long since softened and admitted her mistake, but now, with a gloomy expression, she did not step forward. Ling Chu felt uncertain in her heart. Chu, I hate being lied to the most. This statement was not only directed at Ling Chu but also at me. Pei Ling had already seized all the evidence. Ling Chu suddenly lost her composure, her knees giving way as she knelt before Pei Ling. Yes, I did everything. I was jealous of Murong Wn. Ling Chu gritted her teeth, saying that Pei Ling kept claiming he didn't love her and didn't care about her, yet his attitude kept changing every time. You gave me her elixir and then sought out the Ghost Hand Miracle Doctor, wanting to trade your own eyes for Murong Wan's life. When you came to the bamboo grove to see that I was fine and turned to leave, was Murong Wn on your mind? You still keep those love letters she wrote you, the paintings she made. Pei Ling, why are you deceiving yourself? Ling Chu said that Pei Ling loved without realizing it, but the man claimed otherwise. It's you being overly suspicious, it's you overthinking. Wanwan is just my family. The 9th imperial uncle said he could never love me, that he utterly detests me. Yes, when he regained his memories in our past life, he immediately tried to kill me. I will never forget how, while I was hemorrhaging, I desperately begged him to save the child in my womb, to save me, yet he slaughtered my entire family and hung all their bodies. Is this how he feels about me? How laughable. Don't deceive yourself. If it weren't for her, why would you be so flustered upon hearing that Murong is going to marry for political alliance? If you don't care about her, then why can't you bear to let her go? Ling Chuchu said. Pei Ling's heart was wavering. These past few nights. Whose name have you been murmuring in your sleep? Who are you calling my lady? I don't need to say it. I did do those things. Pei Ling, just kill me. Ling Chuchu closed her eyes in pain. She thought she could marry Pei Ling, but she never expected that the man who once had eyes only for her now seems to have reserved a place in his heart for me. But she doesn't know how Pei Ling treated me in our past life. These suspicions are completely unfounded. Enough, Nan Gongyi sneered coldly. I don't want to hear about your affairs, but I will avenge the grudge of letting snakes bite my wife. He didn't want to hear those words anymore and covered my ears. I shook my head. It's fine. There's nothing left between Pei Ling and me. Nan Gongyi said that the snake he carefully brought from the northern region is very venomous, and its bite is extremely painful. Pei Ling, however, stepped in front of Ling Chuchu at that moment, his heart filled with immense sorrow. You shouldn't have done this, Chuchu. We could have spent our lives together, but you deceived me. Pei Ling said he would seek justice for me, but out of consideration for the fact that Ling Chuchu had once saved his life, I'll take this bite for her. Hiss, Nan Gongyi sneered coldly. Then will the ninth prince also take her place for last night's humiliation? Outrageous, Pei Ling's subordinate shouted angrily, but by then, Pei Ling had already extended his hand, allowing the venomous snake to bite him. Yet it was at this moment that I spoke up. Can the debt of saving a life be repaid with a request? When will you repay me, ninth imperial uncle, for the kindness of drawing blood to create the antidote for you at Lingshan Manor? I took out the jade pendant that I had kept hidden for a long time and placed it in front of Pei Ling. The man's expression instantly changed. What do you mean? Was it you who bled that time? Yeah, I didn't expect Pei Ling to react so strongly. He suddenly grabbed my wrist and demanded to know if I was lying to him again. Murong, are you still unable to break the habit of your deceitful tricks, ninth imperial uncle? How ridiculous. If it weren't for my mother, why would the ghost hand miracle doctor detoxify you? He used my blood. Clang, something fell to the ground. Pei Ling looked at me with a myriad of emotions in his eyes, and in the very next second, Ling Chuchu suddenly drew her sword and lunged at me, but was kicked away by Nan Gongyi. How dare you harm my wife right under my eyes? Who do you think you are? Seize this wretch. I will tear her limb from limb. Nan Gongyi said he was by no means a merciful man. Covering my eyes, he forbade me from looking, saying the scenes were too bloody and would give me nightmares at night. My heart suddenly trembled. I don't know why Nan Gongyi treats me so gently, but I have a vague feeling that I've met him somewhere before. What do you mean your wife? I never agreed to your marriage alliance. Pei Ling gritted his teeth and questioned me again, asking if it was me at the villa. I have no reason to lie to him. It was me. How could this be? Didn't the ninth prince say he would take my place? Nan Gongyi struck ruthlessly, biting Pei Ling's hand in that instant. The snake was highly venomous, and Pei Ling froze on the spot immediately. With Pei Ling caught off guard, Nan Gongyi succeeded in his sneak attack. This is what you owe Wanwan, and it's far from over. But Pei Ling, I won't take your life. I want you to watch as Wanwan marries me. Nan Gongyi said he wouldn't give Pei Ling the antidote for now. He wanted him to taste the pain that cuts to the bone. Pei Ling endured the pain, refusing to kneel, his forehead beaded with cold sweat. I'm sorry, Wanwan. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He actually said sorry to me. This is truly rare. I stood in front of Pei Ling, my expression wooden. Don't say sorry to me, ninth imperial uncle. I'm not worthy. No, Wanwan. I thought it was Ling Chuchu who saved me that night. So I formed a sworn bond with her and saved her. I didn't expect it was you who saved me. He said if he had known the truth earlier, perhaps we wouldn't have ended up like this. So, Imperial Uncle, are you begging for mercy now? Unfortunately, it's too late. I watched Pei Ling struggle in agony. I turned around, grabbed Nan Gongyi's hand, and left. At that moment, my heart felt at ease. To me, it didn't matter who saved Pei Ling in my past life. I was like a moth drawn to a flame. Under the Empress Dowager's pressure, I chose to deceive Pei Ling instead of agreeing to the marriage alliance. At that time, I also had my own selfish motives. I was hiding my feelings for him. Pei Ling was right. Everything that happened was my retribution now. The cause and effect are clear. On the day I married Nan Gongyi, the weather was clear and beautiful. Pei Ling's poison had been cured, but she was left to spend her days confined to a wheelchair. Ling Chuchu was thrown into prison, subjected to all kinds of torture, and then cast into the military camp to serve as a prostitute for the soldiers. But this is far from enough. I turned and walked step by step towards Nan Gongyi, and when the sunlight fell upon him, I suddenly remembered when I sneaked out of the palace as a child. The boy who waited for me under the city wall had eyes just like his. He picked a beautiful peach blossom and tucked it into my hair. At this moment, I remembered everything. What are you giggling about, Wanwan? From now on, as long as your husband is here, no one is allowed to bully you. Nothing, really. I just want a peach blossom. Where would you find peach blossoms in this kind of weather? But Nan Gongyi had his people prepare everything early. This is the object of our first meeting, and it is also what opened the depths of our hearts. Just like when we were young, he tucked a peach blossom into my hair and murmured softly, "Finally, this time I didn't miss you." What did you say? None. Nan Gongyi's voice drifted in the wind as he lowered his head to kiss me. He said, "Wanwan, in this lifetime, let's not miss each other again." After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.